The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, glittering like diamonds in the dark void of space. On the edge of the Orion Arm, the Star Dominion Academy floated above the blue-green planet of Vera 6. Its towers reached high into the sky, gleaming in the light of a nearby star, and its hangars buzzed with ships preparing for missions across the galaxy. Among the young cadets training here, Lyra Vex was considered promising but cautious. She was small in stature with sharp amber eyes that never missed a detail. While others boasted about their skills, Lyra preferred observing, learning quietly, and thinking before acting. Since she was a child, Lyra had listened to stories about a species that no one alive had seen, humans. The Academy's records described them as fierce fighters who had stood against impossible odds. They had once conquered entire fleets with ingenuity, courage, and willpower that seemed almost magical. Many cadets considered these tales exaggerations or myths, stories created to inspire hope during the Great Silence War. Lyra had always been curious but skeptical. How could such a species survive the chaos of war and the passage of centuries? One quiet evening, Lyra walked across the Academy's observation deck. The twin moons of Vera 6 hung in the sky, casting pale light over the shimmering surface. She thought about her upcoming training mission, a routine patrol near the abandoned colonies at the edge of their sector. Nothing exciting was expected, but Lyra felt a strange pull in her chest, a mix of excitement and unease. Perhaps it was the stories of humans stirring something deep inside her, a longing for courage she had only read about in books. Her ship, the Vera Hawk, was small and fast, designed for scouting and quick responses. Its hull gleamed under the stars, and inside the cockpit was filled with displays, sensors, and controls. Lyra checked every system meticulously. The Academy instructors had always stressed that preparation was key. A pilot who rushed into battle without knowledge was a pilot who did not survive. "Good luck out there," said Instructor Renal, her mentor, as he handed her a navigation module. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Remember, cadets are taught to follow orders, but sometimes the universe doesn't follow orders. Trust your instincts." Lyra nodded, feeling both excitement and nervousness. She had trained for months for this patrol, but deep down she knew the universe often had surprises in store. The flight through the outer colonies was quiet at first. Lyra's sensors picked up nothing unusual, and the abandoned stations looked as lifeless as the records described. Rusted metal, empty hallways, and long abandoned ships floated silently in orbit. It was eerie but also beautiful in a lonely kind of way. Hours passed. Then, unexpectedly, the warning alarms blared across her cockpit. Her sensors detected multiple unknown ships approaching at high speed. Zerath raiders, infamous for ambushing unprepared patrols. The Zerath were ruthless, relentless, and known across the Orion Arm for destroying anything in their path. Lyra's heart raced. She was alone, facing forces far more numerous and better armed than she could manage. She tried to send a distress signal to the Academy, but interference scrambled her communications. Panic threatened to take over, but Lyra remembered Instructor Renal's words. "Trust your instincts." "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Think." She activated the Hawk's stealth systems, diving toward a nearby asteroid belt. Her ship weaved through massive rocks, narrowly avoiding collisions. The Zerath fired plasma blasts, tearing chunks of rock into glowing fragments. Lyra's hands moved with precision, guided by training and focus as she tried to find a safe hiding place. But the asteroids weren't enough. The enemy ships tracked her every move with terrifying accuracy. Her shields weakened, sparks flew across the cockpit, and the Hawk shuddered under each hit. She realized that unless she found help, her ship and she would be destroyed. Then, among the jagged rocks, she saw a shadow. A ship unlike any she had ever seen hovered in the distance. It was old, its metal scratched and weathered, yet it moved with precision and power. And beside it, standing on the moon's broken surface, was a figure in armor, tall, strong, and unmistakably human. Lyra blinked. She remembered the stories, but seeing a human in person was different. The legends had said humans were clever, brave, and unafraid of death. But they also spoke as though humans had vanished centuries ago. And yet here one was, alive and real, standing quietly among the ruins. Her mind raced with questions. Who was this human? Why had they survived when all records claimed otherwise? And most importantly, could they help her now? The human noticed her immediately. His movements were calm but alert. He stepped forward, scanning the surroundings with eyes that had seen countless battles. When he spoke, his voice was firm but not loud. "You're in danger. Come down and take cover," he said. Lyra hesitated. Every story she had read about humans painted them as fearless warriors. Yet seeing this one in person, her instincts told her to trust him. She carefully landed her ship near the figure, shutting down the engines to avoid drawing attention. Who are you?" Lyra asked, keeping her voice low. "Cade Mercer," the human replied. "I'm the last of my unit. Don't worry, I'll help you." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that made Lyra believe him. He moved like someone who had survived impossible odds before, deliberate, careful, and confident. Together they took cover behind the ruins of an old hangar. Cade quickly scanned the skies and pointed out the incoming Zirath patrols. "We don't have much time," he said. "You follow my lead and we might just get out of this alive." As they prepared, Lyra noticed small details. The scratches on Cade's armor, the old battle scars on his gloves, the way he moved like he had done this countless times. And yet he didn't appear reckless or cruel, only determined. This was not the careless hero she had imagined from stories. This was real, and somehow he was still human. The Zirath forces landed in a nearby clearing, scanning for life. Lyra's heart pounded as she watched them. Cade whispered instructions, guiding her through the ruins, setting traps from broken metal and old machinery. Lyra's training kicked in, and she followed his directions with precision. For the first time in her life, she felt part of something larger than herself, an ancient legend come to life. When the Zirath discovered their hiding spot, Cade moved like lightning. He attacked with a combination of strategy, speed, and strength that Lyra could barely comprehend. Shots fired, explosions rocked the ruins, and yet Cade remained calm, directing Lyra through every step. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating, and it was unlike anything Lyra had ever experienced. By the time the skirmish ended, the Zirath retreated and the area fell silent once more. Lyra breathed heavily, still processing what had just happened. She looked at Cade, expecting exhaustion, but he stood upright, scanning the area with the eyes of a survivor. You're real," Lyra finally said. "Humans, they're real." Cade's lips curved into a faint smile. "Told you. Legends aren't always lies." In that moment, Lyra realized the truth. Humanity was not extinct. Humans had survived, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to remind the galaxy of their courage. And now she was standing beside one of them, a living legend. As night fell over the broken moon, Lyra felt a mixture of awe, fear, and hope. The galaxy was bigger than she had imagined, and the stories she had doubted were not only true, they were only the beginning. For the first time, she understood what it truly meant to fight alongside a human. The adventure had only just begun. The first rays of a distant sun touched the jagged surface of the broken moon, painting the ruins in shades of gold and silver. Lyra Vex had barely slept since the skirmish with the Zirath. Her mind kept replaying every detail, the enemy's precise movements, the way Cade had anticipated every attack, and the calm confidence he radiated even in the face of danger. She sat atop the wreckage of her ship, staring at the figure of Cade Mercer as he inspected an old control panel. His armor was battered, its metal scarred from battles long past. His movements were careful but fluid, like a seasoned dancer, precise and deliberate. Lyra had trained for years at the academy, yet she felt her own skills pale in comparison. She remembered the legends about humans, stories of unmatched courage, clever tactics, and unyielding spirit. But seeing Cade in action made her realize that the reality far exceeded the tales. "You've been through a lot," she said softly, trying to break the silence. Cade didn't look up immediately. He ran his hand along the metal, feeling for weak spots in the structure. "Wars leave marks," he said finally. "You learn to keep moving or you get left behind." His voice was calm, but there was a depth to it, as if every word carried the weight of years she could not imagine. Lyra nodded slowly. She wanted to ask so many questions: where he came from, how humans survived, what had happened to the rest of his species. But she sensed that answers would come in their own time. For now, she needed to focus on surviving and understanding the fighter before her. Cade turned to her and offered a hand. "Come, we need to prepare for the next attack. The Zirath will be back." Together they moved through the ruins, scanning the horizon. Cade showed Lyra how to set improvised traps using the broken machinery scattered around the moon. Each movement was purposeful, each choice calculated. Lyra realized that humans didn't just fight. They thought, planned, and adapted with incredible speed. You see that ridge over there? Cade pointed toward a jagged cliff. We'll funnel them through the narrow pass. It'll give us an advantage. You follow my lead and stay alert. Lyra's heart raced. She had read about battle tactics, studied them in simulations, but applying them in real life against an actual enemy was completely different. Yet under Cade's guidance, she found herself moving confidently, following his instructions without hesitation. As they worked, Cade spoke quietly, telling fragments of his story. He had been stationed on a remote human outpost centuries ago, part of a unit designed to monitor the edge of the Orion Arm. When the Great Silence War had ended, communications with the rest of the galaxy had been lost. His unit was cut off, left to survive in hiding. Over the years, he had watched worlds rise and fall, enemies come and go, but humans never gave up. You were alone all this time? Lyra asked, incredulous. For a long time, Cade admitted. But alone doesn't mean powerless. Humans survive because we adapt, we endure. And when the time comes, we rise again. Lyra felt a shiver of awe. She had imagined courage in abstract terms, reading about heroic deeds in old stories. But here was a living example, someone who had faced unimaginable odds and refused to give up. He was no myth. He was proof. Hours passed, and the Zerath did return. Their ships appeared like shadows across the horizon, scanning for life. Lyra's hands shook slightly as she prepared her weapons. Cade noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he moved beside her, adjusting the position of a hidden turret and double-checking their traps. Trust your instincts, he said. Don't overthink. The enemy expects hesitation. That's where humans find their edge. The first wave of enemy fighters landed on the moon's surface. Cade's traps activated perfectly. Explosions rocked the ground, throwing Zerath troops off balance. Lyra followed Cade's instructions, targeting key points, moving quickly from cover to cover. The battle was chaotic, loud and terrifying. But under Cade's calm guidance, she felt a strange clarity. For the first time, Lyra understood the truth behind the human legends. It wasn't just about strength or skill. It was about courage, focus, and the will to act even when everything seemed lost. Cade didn't panic, didn't hesitate. He turned every challenge into an advantage, teaching Lyra with his actions as much as his words. When the last of the Zerath retreated, the battlefield was silent again. Smoke rose from the damaged terrain and the smell of scorched metal filled the air. Lyra felt a rush of relief and something else, respect, admiration, even a little awe. Cade had not just survived. He had protected her, outsmarted a superior force, and reminded her what humans were truly capable of. You were amazing, Lyra said, panting. Cade gave a faint smile. You did well too. You followed orders and trusted yourself. That's the start. As the sun set behind the jagged cliffs, Cade led Lyra to a hidden bunker tucked beneath the ruins. Inside, the walls were lined with old machinery, some still operational, and strange containers hummed softly. In one corner, hundreds of cryopods lay dormant, their surfaces frosted with age. Lyra's eyes widened. These humans? She asked, disbelief in her voice. Yes, Cade replied quietly, sleeping. Waiting for a world worth waking to. They've been preserved for centuries. Lyra stepped closer, her fingers brushing the icy surface of one pod. She felt a strange mixture of awe and hope. Humans weren't extinct. They weren't just legends, they were survivors, hidden and waiting for the right time to return. Cade noticed her gaze. It's why I keep going, he said. I survive not for myself, but for them. When the galaxy needs humans again, they'll awaken, and I'll be here to guide them. Lyra realized then that humanity's strength wasn't just in combat. It was in patience, endurance, and faith in their own potential. Legends weren't born from luck. They were earned through survival, courage, and the unwillingness to give up. Days passed, and Lyra trained alongside Cade. He taught her more than just combat tactics. He taught her to think like a human fighter. How to anticipate an enemy's moves, how to adapt to changing situations, and how to stay calm under pressure. Lyra's confidence grew with each lesson, and she began to understand that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. One evening, as they watched the distant stars from the moon's surface, Lyra asked, "Why didn't humans just fight back earlier? Why hide for so long?" Cade looked at her, his expression serious. "Because timing matters. Strength without preparation can be wasted. The galaxy changes, empires rise and fall, and survival means knowing when to act. Legends aren't just stories, they're moments waiting for the right stage. Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She realized that the human spirit was not only about courage in battle, it was about vision, patience, and hope. That night she lay under the stars, thinking about the universe, about humans, and about the role she might play in the story that was just beginning. Cade sat nearby, silent but watchful, a guardian and teacher. For the first time, she felt part of something greater than herself, a living legend that had crossed centuries to remind the galaxy that humans were not to be forgotten. And in the quiet of that ruined moon, Lyra made a promise, to herself, to Cade, and to the humans who slept waiting for their time. She would learn, she would fight, and she would honor the courage that had survived across centuries. Because the human legend was no longer just a story, it was real, and it had chosen her as a witness. The cold light of Vera 6's twin moons glinted off the jagged rocks of the broken moon. Lyra Vex moved cautiously through the ruins beside Cade Mercer, her senses alert for any sign of the returning Zerath forces. The events of the past few days had already changed her. She no longer doubted the human legends. She had seen courage and skill beyond anything she had imagined. But she also understood that legends were tested by fire, and the Zerath would provide plenty of it. Cade led her toward a ridge overlooking a narrow canyon, a natural choke point that would force enemy forces into a confined space. "This is where we'll make our stand," he said. His voice was calm, firm, and unshakable. The enemy moves in straight lines. They expect strength to intimidate them. They won't expect strategy, patience, and precision. Lyra nodded, swallowing her fear. She had trained for combat, but nothing in the academy had prepared her for facing an enemy like the Zerath. Their ships were advanced, their weapons deadly, and their tactics cruel. Yet under Cade's guidance, she felt a confidence she had never known. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a teacher, showing her how humans transformed fear into action. They spent the day setting traps using old machinery, rocks, and salvage from destroyed ships. Cade demonstrated how to make the simplest objects into powerful tools. He moved efficiently, making use of every piece of debris. Lyra followed his instructions, her hands steady even as her mind raced. She realized that human ingenuity was as deadly as any weapon. "You're learning fast," Cade said, watching her adjust a makeshift turret. "Humans fight smarter, not just harder. Every move has purpose." "I want to do more than survive," Lyra replied. "I want to fight like you do." Cade's eyes softened, though the steel in his voice remained. "You will. Courage grows with experience. Don't rush it. Learn to see the battlefield before you see the enemy." As night fell, the first signs of the Zerath patrol appeared on her sensors. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. These weren't scouts. These were full assault teams, and they were moving quickly. The ground trembled as their ships approached, throwing dust and rock into the air. Cade motioned for her to stay low. "Follow my lead. Watch and learn." The battle began with precision. Cade triggered one trap after another, each explosion sending Zerath troops scrambling into predictable paths. Lyra realized that human strategy relied not just on force, but on anticipating the enemy's reactions. Every movement Cade made drew the enemy into disadvantageous positions. When the Zerath landed in the canyon, Cade moved like a shadow. He struck with a combination of speed, strength, and intelligence that was breathtaking. Lyra's heart pounded as she followed his instructions, using her weapons to cover weak points and protect the flanks. She saw what human legends meant. Humans didn't just fight, they turned chaos into order, transforming danger into opportunity. The battle raged for hours. Cade and Lyra moved from position to position, coordinating attacks, directing fire, and setting traps. The Zerath were relentless, but each wave met careful resistance. Lyra began to notice a pattern in Cade's movements. He observed, calculated, and acted with perfect timing. Even in the midst of explosions and chaos, he remained composed, his mind sharp as a blade. At one point, a Zerath squad managed to flank their position. Lyra froze for a moment, but Cade shouted, "Cover the left! Use the rocks! Don't hesitate." She acted without thinking, firing at the enemy while ducking behind debris. "The squad was neutralized before they could regroup, you see?" Cade said as they regrouped behind a ridge. "Fear slows you. Action doesn't. Humans act even when everything is uncertain. That's how we survive." Lyra's respect for him deepened. This wasn't just combat skill, it was a philosophy. Courage wasn't about fearlessness. It was about choice. Even when the odds were against them, humans acted. That was the truth behind the legends. After the last wave of Zerath retreated, Cade led Lyra deeper into the ruins, toward the hidden bunker he had discovered days earlier. Inside, the cryopods hummed softly, their surfaces frosted from long centuries of inactivity. Lyra's eyes widened again. Hundreds of humans lay frozen in their stasis chambers, preserved and waiting for a galaxy worth waking to. "These are alive?" she whispered, almost afraid to touch the smooth surface of a pod. Cade nodded. "Yes, sleeping, waiting for a time when the galaxy will need them. They survived the Great Silence War, hidden from enemies and forgotten by time. But they are here, and when they awaken, humans will return stronger than ever." Lyra felt a rush of awe. The legends had not lied. They had only hinted at what was possible. Humans were not extinct. They had endured, waited, and planned. The realization filled her with hope and a renewed sense of purpose. You really are a legend," she said softly. "I can't believe I'm standing here with you." Cade's expression was calm. "Legends aren't born. They're made. I survived because I had to, and because humans never stop fighting. If you survive long enough, if you endure and learn, anyone can become part of a legend." Over the next several days, Lyra trained relentlessly with Cade. They tested new strategies, reinforced the bunker, and prepared for the inevitable return of the Zerath. Cade taught her not just to fight, but to think like a human fighter, how to anticipate, adapt, and act decisively. "You're not just fighting with weapons," Cade explained one morning. "You're fighting with your mind, your heart, and your choices. Humans don't rely on strength alone. We survive by thinking, by acting, by refusing to quit. That's the real power." Lyra began to understand. Her fear did not disappear, but it became fuel. She learned to trust her instincts, to act decisively, and to move with purpose. Cade's lessons were harsh but fair. Every mistake was a learning opportunity. Every victory a lesson in patience and observation. One night as they rested in the bunker, Lyra asked, "Why didn't humans fight openly before? Why wait so long?" Cade looked at her, his face serious. "Timing matters. Strength without planning is wasted. The galaxy changes, empires rise and fall, and survival isn't about rushing in. It's about waiting, learning, and acting at the right moment. Legends don't just happen, they are prepared for." Lyra nodded. She realized that courage, patience, and intelligence were just as important as fighting skill. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they were adaptable, smart, and relentless. The quiet was broken suddenly by the sound of approaching ships. The Zerath had returned, larger and more determined than before. Lyra felt a flash of fear, but Cade placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Remember what I taught you," he said. "Observe, adapt, act, don't hesitate." The battle began anew. Cade and Lyra moved together, their coordination seamless. Each trap worked perfectly, each maneuver precise. The Zerath underestimated them, and they paid the price. Lyra's confidence grew with every successful action, her understanding of human strategy deepening. Amid the chaos, Cade noticed a hidden chamber beneath the bunker, a secondary storage room for additional human cryopods. He signaled to Lyra, and together they secured the room, ensuring the sleeping humans remained protected. Lyra marveled at the sheer number of pods. There were hundreds, perhaps thousands of humans waiting to rejoin the galaxy. "Imagine it," Cade said quietly. "When they awaken, the galaxy will see what humans are capable of. We're not just fighters, we're survivors, strategists, and leaders. This is only the beginning." Lyra's heart swelled with awe. She had trained for years, studied countless stories, and faced danger, but nothing compared to the realization she was experiencing now. She was standing beside a living legend, witnessing the survival of an entire species. As the Zerath finally retreated for the night, the moon fell silent. Smoke and dust hung in the air, but the bunker remained intact. Lyra and Cade surveyed the battlefield, exhausted but alive. "You've done well," Cade said. "Not everyone learns this fast. Not everyone survives this long, but you have the spirit of a human fighter." Lyra felt pride and humility. She had learned courage, strategy, and endurance. She had faced fear and acted despite it. And she had begun to understand what it truly meant to be part of a legend. For the first time, she realized that the stories she had doubted as a child were not just tales. They were the beginning of something far greater. Humans had survived, hidden and prepared, and now she was part of the story that would bring them back into the galaxy. The fire of the forgotten, as Cade called it, burned not in weapons or ships but in courage, endurance, and hope. And Lyra knew she would carry that fire forward, no matter the danger that awaited them. The twin suns of Vera 6 rose slowly over the horizon, bathing the broken moon in pale golden light. Lyra Vex stood beside Cade Mercer, surveying the damage from the previous night's battle. Smoke still curled from the cratered terrain, and the smell of scorched metal hung in the air. The Zerath had retreated, but Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The enemy was powerful, relentless, and determined to eliminate any evidence of surviving humans. Cade's gaze was steady, scanning the horizon as he checked the defensive positions they had built. "They'll return," he said calmly, "but they won't expect what comes next." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. In the past days, she had learned the true meaning of courage, strategy, and human endurance. She had witnessed Cade in action, seen him protect her, outsmart the enemy, and guide her through impossible situations. And now she understood the importance of what they were about to do. Humanity was no longer a myth. They were a force ready to rise from the shadows, and she would be part of that rising flame. Cade led Lyra into the hidden bunker beneath the ruins. The cryopods hummed softly, hundreds of humans frozen in stasis. Each pod represented a life waiting to return to a galaxy that had forgotten them. Lyra could hardly believe it. For centuries, humans had endured, hidden and prepared. Now with Cade's guidance, they could awaken and reclaim their place among the stars. "We need allies," Cade said, turning to Lyra. "The galaxy is vast, and there are still those who remember the legends. If we can contact them, we can build a defense before the Zerath come again." Lyra's eyes widened. "Contact them? How? We're on a broken moon with no functioning communications for light years." Cade smiled faintly. "That's where ingenuity comes in. We'll use the old Dominion relay stations. They're dormant but not destroyed. We just need to get them operational." Together they worked tirelessly for days, repairing circuits, recalibrating power cores, and reviving ancient relay systems. Lyra marveled at Cade's knowledge. The technology was old, unfamiliar, yet he handled it with ease, blending experience and intuition. Every adjustment he made seemed calculated to achieve maximum efficiency with minimal exposure. Finally, the main relay blinked to life. A soft hum filled the bunker, and a holographic map projected across the room. Lyra's breath caught. Messages could now reach sectors that had believed humans extinct for centuries. Allies could arrive, help defend the humans, and prepare for the inevitable war with the Zerath. Cade activated the system, sending a single, clear message across the galaxy. Human survivors confirmed. Coordinates attached. The Orion arm must prepare. The message would reach the Dominion Council, allied worlds, and anyone willing to fight alongside humans. Lyra felt a mix of hope and fear. Hope because allies could come. Fear because she knew the Zerath would respond swiftly. Days later, small ships began arriving from nearby systems, vessels from the Dominion and independent worlds who had heard rumors of human survivors. Their pilots were skeptical at first, wary of what they might find on a broken, nearly abandoned moon. But as they arrived, they saw humans in action. They saw Cade coordinate defenses, lead attacks, and protect those weaker than him. Skepticism turned to awe, admiration, and respect. Lyra stood beside Cade as the new arrivals were briefed. "We can't waste time," Cade said firmly. "The Zerath will strike and we must be ready. Everyone follows my orders. Everyone fights. We survive together." The Allied commanders exchanged nervous glances. Many had lost hope in the fight against the Zerath, suffering defeat after defeat. But watching Cade, seeing his calm determination and flawless tactics, inspired a new confidence. Lyra realized that humanity's return was not just about fighting skill. It was about leadership, courage, and the unwavering will to act in the face of fear. As the sun set, the first signs of the Zerath fleet appeared on the sensors. The enemy ships were larger, faster, and more numerous than before. Lyra felt a familiar rush of fear, but this time it was tempered with purpose. She had learned from Cade. She had trained. She was ready. Cade surveyed the battlefield, placing ships and defensive units strategically. He gave precise orders, not only to humans but to alien allies who had never seen a fighter like him. Every instruction was clear, concise, and effective. The Zerath underestimated the human spirit. They assumed humans were weak, extinct, and vulnerable. They were about to learn otherwise. The battle began at dusk, the sky lit with streaks of plasma and fire. Lyra moved with practiced efficiency, covering allies, managing weapon systems, and anticipating enemy attacks. She watched Cade as he directed reinforcements, personally engaging enemy ships when needed. The skill and courage he displayed were beyond anything she had imagined. He wasn't just fighting, he was shaping the battlefield itself. Hours passed and the battle raged fiercely. Ships collided, weapons fired, and explosions rocked the broken moon. Lyra's heart pounded, but she felt a strange sense of clarity. The lessons Cade had taught her, the patience, the strategy, the courage, flowed naturally into action. She wasn't just a student anymore. She was a fighter, part of a legacy that had endured centuries. At one critical moment, a large Zerath cruiser broke through their defenses, heading directly for the bunker. Panic threatened to spread among the Allied forces, but Cade remained calm. He issued rapid orders, repositioned defense grids, and personally led a squadron of fighters in a daring maneuver. Lyra followed, her nerves steady, her focus sharp. Together, they neutralized the threat before it reached the bunkers. When the smoke cleared, the Allied forces realized they had achieved something remarkable. For the first time in decades, humans had not just survived, they had led a victory against impossible odds. After the battle, the Allied commanders gathered around Cade and Lyra. "We didn't believe it was possible," one said. "Humans, they were gone. How did you do this?" Cade looked at her and then at the commanders. "Humans survive because we endure. We act when others hesitate. Legends are not born, they are made. And now we are here. The galaxy must remember that." Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had been part of this moment. She had witnessed courage, resilience, and skill that transcended myths. The humans were no longer hidden. The galaxy would see them rise not as stories in old records, but as living proof of enduring spirit. That night, Lyra walked across the moon's surface with Cade. The stars above shimmered like countless eyes watching their small but determined force. She asked quietly, "Will the others wake soon?" Cade looked toward the cryopods. "Soon. When the time is right, they will awaken. The galaxy will see what humans are capable of, and when they do, the Zerath will learn that courage cannot be extinguished." Lyra realized that human strength was more than physical skill or advanced technology. It was the courage to face impossible odds, the patience to endure, and the will to rise again when hope seemed lost. The fire of humanity was no longer hidden. It burned brightly, ready to change the galaxy. As the night deepened, she understood that their battle was only beginning. The Zerath would return, stronger and more determined than ever. But now humans had allies, strategy, and the unwavering courage that had survived centuries. Lyra looked at Cade and felt a deep respect and connection. She was no longer a skeptic of the legends. She was part of one walking beside a living proof of human endurance. And together they would face whatever came next. The morning sun cast its warm light across the broken moon, illuminating the scars of countless battles. Lyra Vex stood beside Cade Mercer, gazing at the rows of cryopods in the hidden bunker. The pods were no longer mere machines, they were a promise, a living testament to the resilience of humanity. After centuries of silence, humans were ready to awaken, and the galaxy would never forget them again. Cade moved through the rows, inspecting each pod with care. "This is it," he said quietly. "Every life here represents centuries of endurance. Everyone is a piece of the human spirit. And soon they will rise." Lyra felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. She had trained, fought, and survived alongside Cade. But seeing the humans resting, waiting for a chance to return to the stars, filled her with a sense of responsibility. She understood now that their survival depended not just on skill, but on hope, courage, and determination. The awakening process began carefully. Cade and Lyra worked side by side to activate the cryosystems. One by one, the humans stirred, their eyes opening to a galaxy that had long since forgotten them. Their faces were weary yet filled with a spark of life, and their movements were slow but purposeful as they took their first breaths in centuries. Where are we?" one man asked, his voice hoarse. "You are on a moon in the Orion Arm," Cade replied, his tone calm yet commanding. "The galaxy is still here, and so are we. Humans survived. You are not alone." Lyra watched as the humans processed their surroundings. Some were amazed, others cautious, but all were alive, all were human. The legends had been true. They had survived against impossible odds, and now the time had come for their return. As the newly awakened humans gathered, Cade began organizing them. "We need to rebuild," he said. "We need to reconnect with the galaxy, form alliances, and prepare for the challenges ahead. Humanity is back, but we are not the only species fighting for survival. The Zirath will come, and we must be ready." Lyra felt a rush of admiration. Cade's leadership was calm, decisive, and inspiring. He did not command through fear, but through example, strategy, and courage. Watching him, Lyra realized that humans were not just legendary fighters, they were leaders, innovators, and visionaries, capable of uniting allies and facing overwhelming odds. The first task was simple: establish a secure perimeter and prepare the humans for the realities of a galaxy at war. Cade led training sessions, teaching both humans and allied species the strategies he had honed over centuries. Lyra assisted, sharing her knowledge of Dominion tactics, and quickly gained the trust of the humans she had once thought of as legends. Word of humanity's return spread quickly through the Orion Arm. Allied worlds responded to Cade's message, sending ships, supplies, and reinforcements to the moon. Some were skeptical, having believed humans were extinct, but the sight of Cade leading survivors silenced any doubts. Ships arrived from distant systems, their crews eager to witness the revival of a species long thought lost. Among the arriving allies were diplomats, engineers, and strategists. Cade coordinated their efforts, ensuring that every human pod was opened safely, and every new arrival was integrated into the defense strategy. Lyra observed the process, amazed at the efficiency and calmness with which Cade handled the situation. Every detail mattered, every life mattered. The human spirit was not only about fighting, it was about leadership, organization, and unity. The Zirath did not wait long to respond. Scouts detected the activity on the moon, and soon waves of enemy ships approached, intent on eliminating the humans before they could re-establish themselves. Cade's forces were ready. Using a combination of human ingenuity, alien technology, and Lyra's guidance, they set up defenses that turned the moon into a fortress. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic. The Zirath attacked relentlessly, but the humans, trained and inspired by Cade, responded with precision and courage. Lyra fought alongside them, coordinating defensive fire, directing reinforcements, and ensuring that the weakest points were protected. The humans moved as one, their coordination a testament to centuries of survival and Cade's leadership. Cade himself engaged in combat directly, striking with calculated force and inspiring those around him. He was everywhere at once, leading attacks, reinforcing defenses, and ensuring that every human and ally survived. Lyra watched, awed, as he turned what seemed like impossible odds into a series of victories, proving once again why humans had been legends. As the dust settled, the battlefield told a story of survival and triumph. The Zirath had been repelled, their forces diminished, and the humans had proven their strength, not just as fighters, but as a united force capable of standing against overwhelming odds. Allied commanders who had doubted humanity now looked with respect and admiration at the survivors. Cade gathered the humans and allies together. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The galaxy is vast and there are challenges ahead, but humanity has returned. We endure, we adapt, we fight, and together we will shape the future." Lyra felt a surge of pride and determination. She had witnessed the awakening of a species, the return of a legend, and the birth of a new chapter in galactic history. She had trained, fought, and survived alongside humans, and now she understood what made them extraordinary. It was not just their strength or skill, it was their courage, their endurance, and their unwavering will to rise when hope seemed lost. With the humans awake and organized, Cade began planning the next steps. He established the Terran Accord, a coalition of human survivors and allied species dedicated to defending the galaxy and ensuring that humanity's legacy would continue. Lyra assisted in coordinating communications, logistics, and strategy, working closely with Cade to ensure that the alliance was strong and prepared. The Terran Accord became a symbol of hope. Worlds that had suffered under the Zirath oppression saw that humanity had returned and that courage could withstand centuries of silence and adversity. Lyra realized that the fire of humanity was not just in battle, It was in unity, leadership, and the ability to inspire others to stand and fight for what was right. Months passed and the humans established colonies, rebuilt their fleets, and trained new generations. Lyra continued to fight alongside Cade, now fully confident in her abilities and inspired by the resilience of the species she had once thought of as legends. Together they faced new threats, overcame challenges, and forged alliances across the Orion Arm. One evening, as Lyra watched the stars, Cade approached, holding a small flag with an old Earth symbol, a blue planet encircled by stars. "This is for the future," he said quietly. "A reminder of where we came from and what we stand for." Lyra smiled. "It's more than a symbol. It's a promise," Cade nodded. "A promise that courage, endurance, and hope will always find a way. Humans have returned and we will never be forgotten again." Together they looked toward the horizon, where ships from dozens of worlds moved in formation, ready to defend, explore, and protect. The galaxy was vast and full of danger, but humanity had returned, stronger and wiser than ever. For Lyra, the journey had been transformative. She had doubted, feared, learned, and grown. She had seen legends come to life, fought alongside them, and helped usher in a new era. Humanity was no longer just a story. They were living proof that courage and resilience could overcome even the darkest of times. And so, the legend of human fighters became truth once more. The fire of the forgotten had risen, and with it a new hope for the galaxy. A hope that would shine brightly across the stars for generations to come. The humans had returned. The galaxy had witnessed their strength, and Lyra Vex knew deep in her heart that she would continue to fight alongside them, carrying the flame of courage, hope, and humanity into every battle that lay ahead.